Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the Division 2, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. If you couldn't tell by the location, we're going to be playing through the Recruiter's mission and boss fight in the game. Now, I actually saw a Reddit post recently complaining about the difficulty of this mission, and it kind of reminded me of just how much controversy it really had back when it released. And what's funny about that, don't shout at me yet, we're going to talk about it, but this is actually one of my favorite additions from, let's say, like the new era of the Division 2, Season 9 and onward, right, when the game came back for content. That's not to say I don't understand why a lot of people dislike it, right? But I actually just really enjoy some of the stuff that they did with this mission, but we'll get to it, and hopefully there's no epic fails in my live playthrough here. Right away, something that they do here that's very cool, I think, is the changes to geometry that they do in this mission. This whole, like, checkpoint turret gate thing does not exist in the other versions of White Oak, and I think it very much helps add to the scale and the coolness of the mission, right? The fact that there's this, like, fortress that we're trying to assault. Just gotta get the barrel back here. Just get a amount of health on heroic. There we go. Also, I love the attention to detail. The fact that you can see that they're rebuilding the bridge, which we saw blow up in the original version of White Oak. Love that. I actually have to try and remember where all these things are. I haven't done a full playthrough of this mission in quite a while. That's part of the reason why I thought it would be cool to go and do this. Here it is back here. Just gotta get the box. And there we go. Luckily, I have my Exodus gloves on. That saved me from that. I figured I would go full hunter to fight the hunter. You know, I got my recruiter outfit on. We're using the Exodus. Once again, this entire, like, fortification here doesn't exist in any other of the White Oak variations. Gotta fight through all these guys here. All right, here we go. Here's one of those first parts that I thought was cool and a lot of people hated. That happened. Oh, we lost our HUD and our connection to the Shade server.
Agent, there's some kind of interference. Our comms still work, but we're losing access to the Shade tech. What the hell are you doing?
Johnson's trying to blame us for it, and there, it blinks back online. So, of course, they're introducing us to a mechanic there that's going to be used throughout the rest of the mission. Now, a lot of people don't like it because it goes against pretty much every other instinct and, like, mechanic that the game has ever taught us. You have your HUD, your skills, all that stuff. That's why I kind of like it, right? Because it goes against your base instincts and makes you play differently. But we'll talk about that more as we go through. Then, of course, you look over here, you can see the recruiter stalking us from the shack. I think if you get too close, he smokes out. Yep, there he goes.
System.
Always love those kinds of details. I think it very much adds to the narrative of this mission specifically, but also just when they utilize those kinds of things in general. Turrets are coming up. We gotta get these. I think it's back here. Yep, here it is. And here we have our server starting to blink in and out of usage. And it's those, like, small real-time tactical decisions and changes that you have to make, right? If you suddenly don't have your radar, you have to try and spot where enemies are visually. I don't know, I just think it's cool. Now, I know so far I'm just giving this mission tons of praise. We will get to the end part, which I think is where the vast majority of people's issues with this mission are.
Your agent. You know, the one that looks like a fucking park ranger.
Alright, there's the reveal. It's the recruiter. Again, by this time in the season, we pretty much knew that Johnson was the recruiter. But again, to pull off that kind of a big reveal within a mission and not, you know, lore comms, pretty cool. Now it's all going down. We have the Shade server going in and out. We got reinforcements. We got Manny freaking out. Oh, see, the enemies spawned in and I didn't have my radar. It was just because I heard the door click open that I knew to look there. It's a very interesting feeling not to know how much armor you have or be able to see your HUD, anything. You just have to go off of instinct. Again, am I saying they should suddenly start using that mechanic across the entire game? No, but I think it's very well used within this mission, and it communicates the narrative points that they wanted to. All right, then of course we get to save Birdie. Very great to actually see Birdie within the mission here. There's been many examples within Division 2 where you don't get to actually physically see the person you're rescuing, so that absolutely adds to the immersion here. Another part I really love here, once you start running out, wait for it, bam! Birdie hacks into the mortar system, and we get the mortars on our side while we rush through this part of the mission. I mean, I would say this easily feels like the most strongholdy of all of the manhunt missions, you know, that we've gotten in, again, the new era of Division 2. Really great scale that they create here, and it really feels like you're kind of assaulting this, trying to hunt down the recruiter. All right, we got one last regular combat section here. I feel like this is also one of the earlier examples we had of the Black Tusks and True Sons working together. Which obviously now isn't a huge shock given that's what happens narratively, but still cool to see and to blend those two different archetypes and factions. Alright, we've made it to the end. Again, the most controversial part of the mission. This is the build I'm going to go in with. Again, I know a lot of people for this section recommend, like, protection from elites and armor regen just to get through it. We'll see how I do. Alright, so we get the cutscene here. I think. Yep, he shows up on the wall. Alright, so immediately, one of the parts that people became very frustrated with is the damage that he does. If you get sniped by the recruiter during the section, you're pretty much dead. and at least on the higher difficulties. Then, of course, there's the timer. You can see we have 10 minutes until the helicopter arrives. A lot of people don't enjoy timers and being pressured like that in these types of missions, which I totally understand. I'm trying to source out where all the enemies are before I get too far up there. Oh, and you see how much damage he does? And then the other component is that you have to figure out where these weak points are, again, within that 10-minute timer, and the game doesn't give you any indication of where they are. Again, I enjoy those more like mechanic-based and hardcore-based kind of missions and experiences, but I also understand that that's very much incursion and raid kind of content, and people who just play missions aren't used to that stuff. So let's see, I'm trying to remember. I think the next one is on the other side. All right, we got that. Then I think the middle opens up. Yep. Oh, and this one, it does give you an indicator, I forgot. And then we have the final one up here. Oh my goodness, I have no kits left. It's a tough fight, no way around it. And now he comes out fully immune. So this is the other part of the fight that people get very frustrated by, is the fact that you cannot really take down the recruiter using normal methods that you're accustomed to throughout the rest of the game. The mobile shade mechanic is about to come back into play here soon. Yeah, there we go. So at the end of that countdown period, the thing is going to shut down again, and you have no skills to fight him with. You don't even get to see how much armor you have. You just have to guess and shoot. Once again, I'll reiterate, I think that difference in combat is pretty cool because it's just, like I said, very different compared to any other fight in the Division 2 that you're used to having, but I fully get why people were frustrated by it, because it's like, why does your build even matter? Also, if you bring in like a skill build, that just becomes pretty much completely invalidated, which can be said about a lot of the Division 2's content, and I know that frustrates people. Hopefully my Exodus gloves will save me if he gets a shot off on me. Actually, I've got pretty good cover here. All right, and the network's back online, and he puts up his invulnerability again. So it's mostly a waiting game. You just have to try and be as nimble and evasive as possible. Oh, I actually got him with that. So again, you have to play like very hide and seek. You can't exert the power that you're used to doing so in the rest of the game's content. What they probably should have done here, something that I was thinking about, because I think a lot of people's frustration comes from this portion right here, that your build just becomes invalidated, and yet the recruiter is still this like massively tanky enemy. They probably should have made this part of the fight like the same regardless of what difficulty you're playing on, you know, like kind of make it a survival or descent like experience where the game treats it as though you have no gear and you're just in a one-on-one with this guy in that kind of sense. I don't think it should matter if you're on normal, hard, heroic, whatever while you're playing this part specifically, because if they had fine-tuned it like that, maybe it would have been received better by the player base. We almost got him. There we go. Is this where it's going to tell me to go back to the house? Yep, it says go in because the mortars are coming in. Run! And then we get the final cutscene of Johnson going down. Bye, recruiter. And there you have it. We took down the recruiter and his fortress, and now we get to recover the Shade server. Well, there you have it, my friends. That is my playthrough and thoughts on the recruiter mission in the Division 2 in 2025. Again, just a very unique kind of mission and experience compared to most of the rest of the stuff that we get with the Division 2, so I thought it would be interesting to revisit this, give some of my thoughts on it. While it does stand out from the rest of the missions in the Division 2's catalog in terms of mechanics and difficulty, personally, I think that makes it all the more cool in terms of scale and just, yeah, overall challenge. But I'm sure many of you out there would disagree, so I would love to hear your thoughts on this mission down in the comments below, especially if you have gone back and played through it more recently, you know, compared to when it first came out. What do you think about how this mission handles its mechanics, the presentation of its different stuff, like losing your HUD, all of that? We'd love to hear it all. That's going to do it for me on this one, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.